The lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday morning, slid under my apartment door like a threat that didn't need to shout to be heard. Living beyond your means. That was the phrase my father had chosen. Not concern. Not advice. Not even disappointment. An accusation, typed, formal, and signed by the same man who once taught me how to ride a bike in an empty parking lot. I stood there barefoot on the cold tile, coffee growing bitter in my hand, rereading the first page until the words blurred together. According to the filing, I was lying about my income. According to my father, the way I lived, quiet building, modest car, tailored clothes, no visible stress, didn't match the salary I claimed. According to his attorney, that made me either reckless or fraudulent. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. My father had always believed money was loud. Big houses. Flashy purchases. Long speeches at dinner about real success. When I didn't play that game, he decided I must be cheating. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. Those 3 weeks dragged like years. Family group chats went silent. My sister stopped calling altogether. My mother sent one text, "This is getting out of hand," but never followed up. No one asked me if it was true. No one asked how I was holding up. They had already chosen a side. The morning of the hearing, I dressed simply. Navy blazer. White shirt. Nothing that screamed confidence or fear. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was there to finish something that should never have started. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood. My father sat 2 rows ahead of me, back straight, jaw set, flanked by his attorney, a man who wore certainty like armor. When my father glanced back, our eyes met for half a second. He didn't recognize the calm in my expression. That should have warned him. The judge listened patiently as my father's lawyer laid out the case. He spoke smoothly, confidently, as if the outcome was already decided. "Your Honor," he said, "the defendant claims to earn just over $200,000 annually. Yet she lives in a building most residents earning double that struggle to afford. Luxury finishes. No roommates. No debt. The numbers don't add up." The judge nodded slowly. My father leaned back, satisfied. Then it was my turn. I stood, hands relaxed at my sides, and spoke clearly. No dramatics. No raised voice. My income is exactly what I stated. Every dollar reported. Every tax paid. The attorney smirked. "Then perhaps you can explain how someone with that income lives the way you do." I looked directly at him. "I don't spend money loudly." A ripple of quiet murmured through the room. The lawyer recovered quickly. "Or perhaps," he said, "you spend money you don't legally possess." The judge turned to me. "Do you have proof of your financial claims?" "Yes," I replied. "But before I submit it, I'd like to ask permission to send one message." The attorney laughed under his breath. My father shook his head slightly, as if embarrassed for me. The judge paused, then nodded. "You may." I took my phone out calmly and typed a single line. "Withdraw all capital from Morrison and Hayes Law Group, effective immediately." I hit send. Then I placed the phone back on the table. For a moment, nothing happened. The attorney continued speaking, confident, dismissive, until his phone buzzed. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. His smile faded. He glanced down, then stiffened. The color drained from his face so fast it looked rehearsed. "Is there a problem, counsel?" the judge asked. The attorney swallowed. "Your Honor. I need a moment." The judge raised an eyebrow. My father leaned forward, confusion replacing arrogance. The attorney's phone buzzed again, longer this time. He answered it, whispering furiously, turning away from the bench. When he returned, his voice wasn't steady anymore. "There appears to be an issue with our firm's operating accounts." The courtroom went silent. The judge folded her hands. "Explain." The attorney hesitated. Several major funds have withdrawn. Without notice. I finally spoke again. Not without notice. According to the contract, notice was properly given. My father turned toward me sharply. What did you do? I met his eyes, calm as ever. Nothing improper. Just exercised a right you didn't know I had. The judge looked between us. Ms., are you financially connected to this law firm? Yes, I said. Indirectly. That was when my father's confidence finally cracked. What does that mean? He demanded. I took a breath, not because I was nervous, but because some truths deserve space before they're spoken. It means, I said evenly, that the money you think I don't have has been working quietly for a long time. The judge leaned forward. You'll need to elaborate. I will, I replied. In part 2. I sat down. My father didn't. The courtroom felt different after that. Not louder. Not chaotic. Just unstable. As if the ground everyone thought was solid had shifted an inch, and only a few people could feel it. My father was still standing when the judge spoke again. Mister, she said firmly, please take your seat. He didn't argue. He sat down slowly, his face tight, eyes locked on me like he was trying to recognize a stranger wearing my skin. The attorney cleared his throat, buying time. Your Honor, regardless of our firm's internal matters, the core issue remains. No, the judge interrupted. It doesn't. Not anymore. She turned to me. You claim to be indirectly connected to significant capital. I'm going to need clarity. Carefully. I nodded. Of course. I stood again. This time, I didn't look at my father. I looked at the bench. For years, I worked in a sector where anonymity is not just common, it's required. Asset structuring. Silent partnerships. Legal funds that operate behind institutional walls. My father scoffed under his breath. You. Don't be ridiculous. The judge's gavel tapped once. Mister, one more interruption and you'll be removed. Silence. I continued. After college, I didn't join the family business. I didn't ask for introductions. I didn't ask for capital. I started small. Very small. That part was true in a way my father would never understand. I remembered those early years vividly. Tiny apartment. Long nights. Turning down vacations, weddings, and dinners because I was building something invisible. Every time my father asked what I was doing, I gave him a simple answer. Consulting. He always smirked at that word. Consulting wasn't impressive to him. It didn't sound like power. What I never told him was who I was consulting for, or what percentage of upside I was quietly negotiating instead of salaries. I reinvested everything, I said. I lived below my means by choice. Not because I had to, but because I understood time compounds faster than ego. The attorney shifted uncomfortably. The judge nodded slowly. And this legal fund? I'm one of its early silent contributors, I said. My name doesn't appear publicly. By design. My father's voice cracked through the silence. That's impossible. You never had that kind of money. I finally turned to him. No, I said calmly. You never gave me that kind of money. That landed harder than any accusation. The judge exhaled softly. So when you sent that message, I exercised my right as a capital partner to withdraw funds from a firm that chose to represent a case built on assumption rather than evidence. The attorney looked like he might actually be sick. Your Honor, he said carefully, we request a brief recess. The judge studied him, then nodded. 10 minutes. As people stood, my father grabbed my arm, not roughly, but desperately. Why didn't you tell me? He hissed. I removed his hand gently. You never asked. You only accused. His mouth opened, then closed again. Outside the courtroom, the hallway buzzed with whispers. Phones came out. People looked at me differently now, not with admiration, but with caution. That was fine. Respect earned through fear lasts longer than respect begged for. My sister appeared at the end of the hall, breathless. "Dad," she said, ignoring me completely, "what's happening?" "The lawyer won't answer my texts." My father didn't reply. He was staring at the floor. She turned to me then, eyes sharp. "What did you do?" I smiled slightly. "Nothing dramatic. I just stopped pretending." The recess ended too soon. Back inside, the judge didn't waste time. "Given new information," she said, "this court finds no basis for claims of fraud or misrepresentation. The plaintiff's case is dismissed." My father flinched. "Additionally," she continued, "I strongly advise the plaintiff to reconsider the consequences of future actions motivated by assumption rather than fact." Gavel. Once. That should have been the end. But my father stood again. "This isn't over," he said, voice shaking. "You embarrassed this family." I looked at him one last time. "No. I exposed a lie you were comfortable believing." The judge's voice cut through the moment. Court is adjourned. People began to leave. Conversations erupted. My father didn't move. Neither did I. Because the real consequences hadn't arrived yet. Outside, as I stepped into the sunlight, my phone buzzed. One message. Transfer complete. Then another. Secondary review initiated. Then a third. Board meeting scheduled. Emergency. Behind me, I heard my father's voice, small now. "What does that mean?" I didn't turn around. "It means," I said quietly, "you sued the wrong person. And trusted the wrong people." I walked away as sirens echoed somewhere far off, not for me, but for the collapse that had finally begun. The city felt louder outside the courthouse, but inside me, everything was quiet. Not empty. Settled. I didn't rush away. I stood on the steps for a moment, letting the weight of years finally lift. The lawsuit was over, but the consequences were just beginning, and this time, they weren't aimed at me. My phone rang. Not a message. A call. I answered without looking at the screen. "Go ahead," I said. The voice on the other end was controlled but tense. The board convened early. Morrison and Hayes just lost 3 institutional clients in under an hour. 2 more are reviewing exposure. I closed my eyes briefly. "Expected," I replied. "There's more," he added. Internal audits flagged irregularities. Billing structures. Conflict disclosures. It's going to get ugly. I hung up before he could finish. Because behind me, I could hear footsteps I knew too well. My father. Slow. Uneven. Like someone walking through a world that no longer obeyed the rules he believed in. "You destroyed my reputation," he said. I turned. "No," I replied evenly. "I let the truth touch it." His face looked older than it had an hour earlier. Not tired, deflated. "Why didn't you just help me?" he asked. "Why let it go this far?" I held his gaze. "Because you didn't want help. You wanted control." That hurt him more than the lawsuit's dismissal ever could. My sister appeared again, phone pressed to her ear, panic leaking through every movement. "They're freezing accounts," she whispered urgently. "Dad, the lawyer says we should prepare statements." He raised a hand. She stopped. He looked at me. "Is it true? About the money?" "Yes." "How much?" I didn't answer directly. I never needed to. "Enough," I said, "that suing me was the most expensive mistake you ever made." That was the moment his anger finally cracked into something else. Regret. But regret doesn't rewind decisions. It only explains them too late. I walked away. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just finished. 3 weeks later. The headlines never used my name. That was intentional. But everyone in the industry knew. Morrison and Hayes Law Group entered restructuring. Senior partners resigned. 2 malpractice suits filed. Client assets reallocated. The firm my father trusted, the one he believed would crush me, was dismantling itself quietly, piece by piece. My father stopped calling. Not because he forgave me. Because he finally understood something worse than betrayal. He never knew me. 6 months later. I ran into him once. Not at a courtroom. Not at a meeting. At a grocery store. He looked thinner, smaller. Like a man whose authority no longer worked outside his own memories. We stood in the same aisle for a moment. He nodded. I nodded back. Nothing else was necessary. Because closure doesn't always come from words. Sometimes it comes from silence that no longer hurts. 1 year later. I signed the final document that morning. A clean exit from a silent partnership. A reallocation of capital. A future already planned years ago. As I closed the folder, my assistant asked, "Any regrets?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "Just clarity." Because I learned something most people never do until it's too late. Power doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from knowing who you are, long before they notice. And when my father sued me for living beyond my means, he was right about one thing. I was living beyond the limits he set for me.